Yeah, Chris, we want to talk now to TCU political science professor Dr. James Riddlesperger for a little more perspective on what's happening here. Dr. Riddlesperger, we've got protesters storming the U.S. Capitol and the Senate floor. How did we get to this point in our nation?
Well, it's just a horrifying scene, of course, and that's something that I think all of us agree is something that we would never have dreamed would have come to. But what has happened here is that we have had President Trump actually openly questioning the outcome of the election and doing so in a way that actually has stirred some extremists, not his intent to stir them up, but has stirred some of the extremists who attended his rally to become mobs and looters.
Dr. Riddlesperger, so you mentioned the president. We heard from him today, both before the breach happened and a short while ago. What are your thoughts about his message to these protesters, asking them to be peaceful, but not making the demands they leave?
Well, when a situation gets out of hand like this, then it calls for very strong and unified leadership with all people making exactly the same message. And here we've had a failure in the Trump administration to have a firm and unified message that violence is not acceptable, that breaching the United States Capitol, to breaking public property, is just something that is not a legitimate form of political protest. And President Trump has not been nearly strong enough in making that kind of a statement.
How do you believe we put out this political fire in our country?
Well, politics is an art, and as our great Speaker of the House from Texas used to say, politics is the art of disagreeing without being disagreeable. We have to be able to disagree, and we have to be able to channel our passions and our deep feelings about what government should and should not be doing. But we have to do that in a way that respects the people with whom we disagree. That was what was going on the floor of the Senate and the House as the breach took place this afternoon. There was enough conflict there, but it was conflict in a manner prescribed by law. And that's the way that we have to go about resolving differences.
We know now that the Democrats have won the U.S. Senate. Some people might think that the Democrats will perhaps further a left-wing agenda. Do you think that's the case here, or will we see more moderation moving forward?
Well, I mean, the Democrats have a majority only with the vice president casting a vote to break the tie. But remember, there are still a number of very moderate and even slightly conservative Democrats serving in the Senate. So there will not be a rubber stamp for any kind of a liberal agenda. What I am hoping moving forward is that this will force senators to engage with each other across the aisle and begin to get into the process of actually hammering out differences between them. Again, going back to Sam Rayburn, and I think this is an appropriate time to talk about him as a great Texan in Congress. He said we're in the carpentry business here, and we need to be working together to build something that can be good for every American.
I ask you what the message should be from President Trump to protesters. What should be the tone from President-elect Joe Biden right now?
Well, I think he already gave a very forceful statement, and his statement was that this is not America. This is not the way we proceed. And what we've heard from him is very much like what we have heard from other presidents, both Democrats and Republicans, in time of crisis within the United States. It's President Trump that is a little bit unusual in that regard. And of course, that is part of the reason that his supporters are so passionate in their support of him.
My last question to you as we wrap, Dr. Riddlesperger, there's been so much rhetoric about a fraud election. How do we begin to restore belief in our democracy?
Well, I think that's something that we have to work on moving forward. I do think that discussions about how elections are conducted should be held in every state, and that we ought to be making decisions at the state level and at the local level and publicizing the way in which votes can be cast and the way that they are counted, so that a larger percentage of Americans understand the process and therefore are not likely to be as susceptible to the kinds of conspiracy theories that have been promoted on some internet sites over the last months.
TCU political science reporter, Professor Dr. James Riddlesperger, we thank you for your time today and your insights.
Always happy to be here.